So porn is great at calming our nervous system. Why do guys watch porn? I'm anxious. I'm stressed, financially stressed. I got in an argument with my wife. I'm amped up. Kids are pissing me off. I got to make a tough decision. There's a lot of things in front of me and I'm trying to avoid them. All of those put us into a sympathetic state, a fight or flight response. Well, we can go watch some porn, get a massive dopamine spike, have a release through masturbation. Now we've shifted our nervous system into a parasympathetic. We are now calmed ourselves down. Well, how does this happen though?
We believe that you are strong by design, and you were made in God's image to have a strong body, mind, and spirit. You're listening to the #1 strength and health authority podcast in the world. So let's get ready to unlock your potential and transform your life in today's episode. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Strong by Design podcast. Coach Chris Wilson here in the compound, sitting with my bro. It's starting to get a little bit more comfortable, this time of year where we can actually do it out here and not be sweltering, even though we still got a big ass fan and I have an extra small fan for Frank. I'm actually getting some of that. It's like bouncing off the chair and coming back. So, sometimes when we can, we like to give ourselves a little bit more space for the podcast rather than cramming ourselves into somebody's office. One of these days, when we have our own new building, like a one that we own, that we buy, and we have a dedicated podcast room, I really long for that day when that day happens. But right now we're just we piecemeal it. We kind of make the set wherever we want to. Sometimes I almost did this one in my office with all the superhero business everywhere.
Oh, that would be cool.
But anyway, so excited to talk with my good friend Frank Rich today on the podcast. It's been a while since he's been on the show, so we got to catch up with him and see what's going on. Two of our all-time best episodes on the podcast. They are, and I put it down here because I didn't want to flub it up, because these episodes continue to get a ton of downloads. The name is Truth About Porn from season 2, bro. Episode 109, and the Truth About Porn season 4. This is a part 2, episode 213. And those were some years ago now, and we went deep on this topic with what you've been doing over the last several years now. You were earlier on in your journey in that season 2, episode 109. But I urge all of our listeners who've clicked onto this episode, please dive back into that one, because it was such a good conversation I was not a part of. It was Coach Mike and Brian talking with Frank in that episode. So go back, listen to that. Check out episode 213 as well. So Frank is a longtime friend here of Critical Bench. He's been in this building a heck of a lot over the last 8+ years. He's a bodybuilder. He's a monstrosity of a man. 6'3", 200. What are you? How heavy are you
about
now?
250 right
You're
now.
actually pretty lean. You look really lean. Maybe it's the black shirt.
I think it's probably the black shirt.
Yeah, I mean, he's still freakishly large. He's the creator and host of the Superhuman Life podcast, which is a terrific podcast that he's had for many, many years. Gosh, I was on one of the earlier episodes, way back episode 3.
Yeah.
Holy cow!
We recorded it in the front lobby.
Yeah, we
up
did.
there.
I remember that, dude. He's the founder of Rebuilt Recovery. Look at his hat. He's wearing the merch. And he's a prominent coach here in the Critical Bench YouTube channel. I mean, gosh, you've been in hundreds and hundreds of videos and products, for that matter, over the years. So, I mean, dude, it's so nice for you to be here in the building. It's a long time coming. We've talked about this, and a few months ago, it came up when we were at dinner together, and it was just like, when are we going to do this? So thank you for making time to drive an hour to get here.
Yeah, Chris, I mean, it's an honor, man. I miss this place. I miss the regular workouts. It's funny because everything that I'm doing today, I think we touched on this in the first episode, started in the parking lot.
I know. Yeah, with Zach, right?
That conversation with Zach happened in the parking lot after one of our Thursday workouts, February 14th, 2019. So it's just so real. And I mean, every time I get to come back here, and I mean, the relationship with you and Mike and the team over the years has been just amazing for me and my journey into my faith, and just the personal side that we've done some amazing things together over the years. So yeah, it's a real honor to be here.
Yeah.
Actually, it's my 4th time on the podcast
You're
because
right.
we recorded
My bad.
muscle
Early
building
one.
episode.
That's exactly right.
Early on.
Way back. Well, that
Probably one of the first 30, 40 episodes that you guys had.
Episode like 15 maybe?
Yeah.
Or 10?
Yeah, the truth was a progressive overload.
It's exactly right. It was all muscle building content. Yeah, that's right, dude. It was before your journey started. The journey that you're on now is before that even started. So, yeah, it's funny, the evolution of us as individuals, you know. We're all constantly changing, you know. I spoke the other day, you know who David Pollack is? He was a longtime guy, dark hair, good-looking guy on ESPN College Game Day.
Okay.
Had him on the show to help promote his new Brave book. So he did a children's book with Brave.
No kidding.
And it's just a great dude. You know, such a good guy. Really enjoyed talking with him. But he was like, you know, you're constantly having to evaluate yourself because he's talking about his marriage to his wife. He's like, we were different people when we got married to where we were once we had kids to where we are when our kids are 20 years old. So it's just like these different chapters and stages of life. You know, you're an evolution. You're an evolving, ever-changing type person based on the people you meet and the experiences that you have and the choices that you make. And so, you know, that's what's so cool. People can decide on any given day, hey, today's my day to become somebody new, become somebody better. So obviously you had that moment, as you mentioned, in this parking lot, unbeknownst to us, by the way. We didn't know what was going on until, I think it was weeks later, right? Because you kind of went dormant for a while. I remember, dude, it was weird, right? Because we were at Dan Long's Easter, and I didn't even recognize you, bro. Seriously. And this is a guy I've spent, at that point, I mean, workouts together, filming together, a lot of time going out to steak dinners, like hanging out, doing stuff. We were at a big function at a friend's house, and you had dropped a ton of weight and grew this big, beefy beard, and you were kind of like, you were probably trying to see, like, I wonder if he'll recognize me or notice me. And eventually, like, you came over and you're like, hey, buddy. And I was like, what in the hell? I wouldn't have known it was you. And you went through this total transformation. You know, you kind of like just stripped your former self at that point.
Yeah, I didn't understand what I was doing at the time. I was just following what God was placing on my heart, and it was a lot of fasting. I was forced out of the gym by a broken hand. I remember that happened a couple days after the conversation in the parking lot with Zach. But looking back now, I understand I was letting go of all the parts of me that needed to be let go. You know, Rebuilt Recovery, we walk guys through an identity transformation, and we actually have a part inside of our curriculum now that is, it's a metaphorical and kind of spiritual death of the old self. And we take all these parts of our past self and we have the guys write it down on a piece of paper. And then watch the paper burn, and you're supposed to see these parts of you that are maybe holding on to some of these limiting beliefs, maybe the part of you that is holding on to that addiction, maybe the part of you that is holding on to a limiting mindset, maybe holding on to mediocrity. You're supposed to watch it go. And for me, the stripping of the weight, I think, was letting go of what I had built as a shield to protect the world from the kid that was inside of me that never faced a lot of that pain inside of me. I said, I can just become big and strong and nobody will ever know what I'm wrestling with inside. Exactly and I masked that through pornography. Obviously, I masked it through drugs and alcohol. So letting that part of me go taught me how to love myself for just who I was. Now I love being big, and that's why I put all the size back on. But yeah, it was an incredible journey that at the time, like I said, I didn't really understand what God was doing in me, but it's been so transformative for me.
Yeah, I recently talked with another former guest and host of our podcast, Joe Miller, who's just amazing, spirited young woman. Well, yes, everyone's young to me anymore, it seems like. But she's her story is absolutely phenomenal. But she struggled with self-love, which I think a lot of people do, actually, right? And you don't have to have necessarily a porn addiction or something else to struggle with self-love. Some people, like, they can't give themselves credit for anything. They can't praise themselves for anything. They're never good enough. They're always falling short. And what you do is you end up filling that hole with something else, some other attachment. And for you, that attachment was porn.
Pornography.
Pornography.
Yeah, there's a quote in Michael John Cusick wrote Surfing for God. And it was a book early on in my journey that was really profound and has been kind of a staple in our program. And he quotes G.K. Chesterton. I'm sure you know G.K.
Yeah, he's a lot of quotes.
Yeah, great Christian philosopher, spy. And in the late 1800s, Chesterton said, "A man that knocks on a brothel door is knocking for God."
Huh, wow.
And Michael took that quote and kind of made the modern version of it, right? You know, when we go on the internet and we type in these sites or we're searching for these images or videos, it's all this external validation to fill that hole inside of us that only God can fill. You know, some people have done it with business success. I mean, we know a lot of very successful, financially successful people that reach the top and then maybe they realize it wasn't all they thought it was going to be. Some people do it in material possessions. Some people do it with drugs, alcohol. Today, the young men are doing it with pornography, and that's what we're trying to be an advocate against, be a voice of awareness and education, but also be the place where guys can experience real breakthrough.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Speaking of that, since we've had you in last on this topic, which was more than a couple of years ago now.
Yeah.
I mean, time's been just ticking and flying by. It's amazing. You've done a lot, right? You're having more and more success with your YouTube channel. That's growing. More and more success with just Rebuilt Recovery and your coaching program, with the Superhuman Life podcast. You're speaking. You're doing speaking engagements. What does life look like for you? The kind of encapsulate that last 2.5 years or so since you've been on last. Like, what's that look like for you? How's it feel?
Yeah,
to have more impact.
Yeah, man, it feels amazing, man. You know, like you, I think I'm a coach at heart, right? Like I think there's something in us as coaches that want to be a source of help, inspiration, motivation for others. I mean, it was what got me into the fitness coaching. It brought me to the YouTube channel here. It's it's brought me into other endeavors. But to be clear on my mission from God, as clear as I am today, know what we're here to do, and I believe really. I figured some things out over the last couple of years. You know, back in 2020 when I first took the couple clients on, like I was just kind of walking these guys through my own kind of personal journey. Like these are the things that were working for me.
This is what worked for me.
Yeah. How's it working for you? We're kind of on a third iteration of our program. There's been a lot that's been removed. We've had over 1,200 successful transformations.
Wow.
So we've had a lot of great feedback. I mean, when I hear from wives, I was in Scottsdale last week and I got a chance to connect with a client out there, him and his fiance. So he went through our program and he's still part of our community today, but we got a chance to meet up, have dinner with him and his fiance. And they drove us back to our Airbnb after it. And I mean, just the words coming from him about the experience of the program. This is a 28-year-old, very successful financial planner, getting ready to embark on the next season of his life. Amazing to hear from him. I get to hear from guys all the time. To hear his fiance talk about how our work has changed their relationship and changed him, like it fills me in a way that nothing I've ever done fulfills me. So yeah, my role has been, as still the operator. I'm still the primary head coach, the marketer, the face of the brand, the visionary, the CEO. Sure. There's a lot of things happening.
But that's not unique to
now.
A lot of successful businesses.
Yeah,
not all, but a lot of them are really hinging on that one person that drives the apparatus.
Yeah. Moving forward, the goal is to really begin to step out of some of that day-to-day stuff as quickly as possible. But yeah, it's been amazing, man. We launched a second podcast a year ago, The Rebuilt Man, which is purely tactical on the recovery side. It brought me back to the YouTube game, which I was away from for a year. But yeah, it's just what's been amazing, Chris, and you've played a role in this and having me on the show now 3 times. You've had other people that I'm friends with on the show addressing this topic.
You've introduced us, I think, to some people that have been guests.
Yeah, you know, when I started my podcast back in 2019, like there weren't a lot of conversations. Like, you know, we'd reach out to guests or we'd reach out to other shows and they'd be like, we're not really sure we want to have that. There's still this, you know, certain times it gets tabooed or, you know, we're gonna have a sensitive conversation. That is changing though. And I think the landscape of society is changing. I think the understanding of the dangers of porn are changing. So it's been really cool to maybe be a role in a figure in the forefront of changing this conversation. So yeah, it's been an amazing journey and I believe we're just getting started. And I'm excited about kind of where things are going in the future.
Yeah. It's truly just a testament to what, you know, we're all fallen, broken people, right? In different ways. All of us are, every single person, me included, all of our listeners, you know, we all have our shortcomings and things that we want to keep hidden, things that we don't feel comfortable talking about, things that challenge us, things that scare us, terrify us. This was something that obviously was a dark part of your life that you didn't want to open up or share with anybody for a very long time, but you were able to channel that, use all of that in such a positive way. And it's almost like, gosh, if we don't go through those trials and those low moments, it's like, are we even capable of truly tapping into our potential of reaching people and helping people, you know? It's people, I think, that have had the hardest times and the heaviest trials that are able to, not always, but they're able to come back. And look at the hip hop preacher, Eric Thomas.
Eric Thomas, yeah.
He didn't have it good or easy for a very long time, and look what he's doing for inspiring change and success in people. I mean, he's unbelievable. I used to listen to him, dude. This years ago when it was just Mike and I, like in our old building, in the Bank of America building over on Olmerton. And I would listen to ET stuff on YouTube to hype me up at my desk, like while I was working, because his stuff was just so good. And he's still doing it. You know, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things I hear from guys, you know, that reach out, come into our program, you know, stick around for a while is, you know, there's great teachers out there. There's great people with theories and, you know, different scientists or psychologists or therapists. It's like they've read some textbooks. Right. They understand the brain. I understand all that stuff as well, right? I've gone very deep into the education and research of these things. But they're like, Frank, we resonate with your journey. We resonate. We see me and you, like maybe the younger version, right? And I think that there's something to that. You know, you can be a great theory teacher. You can understand all of it, but if you haven't been in the trenches, you know, you work with kids. You know, you coach youth sports. Like you're a better coach to them because you played sports as a youth. Yeah. You know what it's like as a kid trying to figure these things out, so you can relate to them. It's the same in the coaching space, man. Like, you know, I can resonate with a guy that is crushing it financially and feels like he's on top of the world, but when he goes home at night, he feels empty. I could resonate with a person that wants to create something in this world, but this thing is holding them back, because that's who I was for a very, very long time. So yeah, I definitely think there's something to having gone down the journey myself.
Oh, I mean, and I was just so... you know, it's inspiring to hear someone else open up about something they're so ashamed of, as a part of their life, you know, but you can take that kind of shameful period and be a blessing, absolute blessing in someone else's life, like the example of that couple that you visited with out in Scottsdale. Like you completely, I mean, if your business saved that marriage, it's all worth it, like all this work. But you said you have 1,200 people recovered who've been part of your programming over the years now, which is unbelievable. The ripple effects. You've made them better people. Now they're better people in their marriages, for their kids, in all their relationships at work. Like you end up impacting a lot more than 1,200 people. And so that's pretty freaking awesome.
We did a documentary style. Steven worked with us to shoot it with Hillsborough County Sheriff. He's at 10th Grace Family Church, lives up in Lutz. Spent the afternoon at his house with his family. His wife is in the film. Got a chance to meet his kids. To think about the legacy impact that will come out of this guy making the choice and decision that he was ready to change. We have pro athletes on our roster, guys that have massive public reach. We have very successful business owners that are running teams of 50 to 100. These people are impacting hundreds of people every single day. And by them getting control of this thing, by them leveling up, by them becoming the men that God has called them to be, the world becomes a better place. Sathya says it. You know Sathya.
Yeah.
Change the man, change the world.
He was episode 300, I think, for us. He got the special.
Yeah, he got the 300.
300.
Yeah, I love the quote, man. Change the man, change the world. And we're doing the same thing. We've both carved out our kind of individual niches, but it's true, man. We're seeing what's happening, I think, kind of in the country here just over the last week or so, with putting the right people in power, with the right intentions, with the right visions. I see the work that we're doing is right in line with all of that.
It's awesome. Yeah. It's cool. It's so fun to think back to all these conversations as you build steam and momentum with your platform, like your podcast. You have a second podcast now, right? Yeah. And you start thinking back, you're like, gosh, man, it's a lot of good stuff out there floating around. And, that who knows, a conversation I had 4 years ago is changing someone's life right now. That's pretty freaking awesome.
I have over 1,200 videos on YouTube. I mean, nowhere near what you guys did, but
we're just, so if I could press delete on half of our old stuff, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just because the old stuff starts to look old.
I know.
And I mean, but it also kind of shows the evolution.
But then, then you'll get the comment that pops up on the video from 3.5 years ago.
Yeah, I know.
Right? And it's like, you read the comment and it's a young man, or it's a father that we were talking about parenting, or it's a wife, we were talking about relationships.
Yeah.
I've thought about that too. I thought about I could delete half of these because they're garbage. They got a couple hundred views, right?
Yeah.
But it only takes one.
That's it.
It only takes one view. So, yeah.
I think you still have the #1 video on our compound channel. Remember that dumbbell video that you did? It was like top 13 dumbbell exercise or whatever.
Yeah.
And organically, that thing just went AWOL. And then I think we also put a little bit of money on it because we're like, let's really blow it up. And, several million views on that thing or something. It's fun. It's fun to see some of that stuff, because it does benefit people. Regardless of what we think about it, once it's been.
Well, it's funny because that video is not one I was like excited to shoot.
No,
it was like beginner
very
exercise.
matter of fact in it. You know what I mean?
I was like, that was right in my prime of like muscle building. Let's talk about the advanced techniques.
Yeah.
And you guys are like, no, we're going to shoot this beginner video with like 5-pound dumbbells. And I'm like, really?
Yeah, you got this big 200. Like at the time, you were probably even bigger, right?
Bigger,
like 275, just total meathead with your towel. You got the whole look. You were like perfectly matching. You had the black, white, red combo.
I had a
thing
spray
going
tan
on.
for that one too.
Yeah, you did.
I got all.
You were all jacked up with like 10-pound dumbbells, showing beginner. Like, here's how you do a row. And it blew up. Now, some stuff that we didn't cover in those first few episodes, Truth About Porn, was that the role that your gut plays in this whole thing, and how your gut health is connected to the way your brain functions. Can you talk a little? And obviously it's all about nutrition. What are we putting in our body? Our gut responds to what we're eating, what we're drinking, how much sleep we get, how much exercise we, all these things kind of come together. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because you've probably done quite a bit of learning and reading and growth in that area over the last few years. Since you were last here.
No, yeah, absolutely. I had Dr. Stephen Gundry on the podcast about a year ago, right after the release of his book, Gut Check. And we were in this exact conversation about the role that gut plays in addiction. He's telling me, as a nutritionist, the amount of addiction clients that he works with because they come to him because they find his work. And he had a great line, right? Hippocrates said it 2,500 years ago, all disease begins within the gut. Now, I don't believe addiction is a disease, but I think there's a lot of truth in that statement from 2,500 years ago. All our ailments, all our illness, all our diseases begin within the gut. You mentioned in 2019 where you saw me on February, and it was about Easter time, was the next time you saw me. It was a 2.5 month kind of gap there.
60-pound weight loss?
Yeah, it was about 40 at that time. I think
okay.
total was about 60 when I was done and completed. What led me and contributed to that was a lot of fasting, eating one meal a day, in the carnivore diet.
Right.
And like I said, I didn't understand how it was changing me. I mean, I was experiencing incredible change, both physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually at the time. But the carnivore diet is a great tool for anybody that is struggling with a leaky gut. It will literally change the inner gut lining in about a 7 to 14 day window. It will restore your entire gut microbiome. So like I said, at the time, I didn't understand the role I was playing and how I was beginning to think differently and how I was beginning to kind of live differently. But as I kind of looked back and done the research and spoken with the experts, we realized like all of your thoughts, all of your brain's ability to produce healthy neurotransmitters starts within the gut. I think the saying for a long time was the gut is the second brain. And I think more and more experts are pointing to it as actually the first brain. Like your ability to think clearly, to operate efficiently, to feel good, produce healthy, feel good neurotransmitters, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, all that starts with a healthy gut. If your gut is not healthy, it's going to affect the way your brain works. I mean, I gave an example a couple of weeks ago, right? You have a night of drinking, you wake up with a headache. Well, you didn't pour alcohol into your brain, it went into your mouth and then into your gut. But the inner lining of the gut now has a different microbiome that affects your brain's ability to think and efficiently operate.
Wow.
So it becomes, it's been a part of our program, but now we lean into it even more heavily. We want these guys, not everybody has to go on the carnivore diet. I will never tell anybody if you need to quit porn, you have to eat only meat. I think it's an incredibly effective tool for somebody that is really struggling, both with weight management, with maybe self-control, self-discipline, but even for 14 to 30 days, like it will reset your gut microbiome and you'll begin to think and feel 100% differently. So yeah, it just changes the neurochemical firing within the brain. Now, the carnivore is a great way to use it, but if you were to remove processed sugar, if you clean up your diet, ate whole foods, I do believe in practicing fasting. We do have fasting in our program as well.
No doubt, dude. I mean, I've only experienced true fasting, like a true fasting regimen that I followed for 17 days.
Okay.
For 14 days, I lost 17 pounds.
Yeah.
But it changed my body
Yes.
and the way I felt for like months afterwards. I felt the effects from that. And that was like just 3-day fasts with a keto meal.
Yeah.
3-day fast, 2 keto meals.
Yeah.
And did this for 2 weeks. It was an Elliot Hulse 14-day rational fasting program.
Yeah.
Mike and I both did it. And we had him in on the podcast to talk about it afterwards. But it had a major effect on me. I have yet to go back and do it again. I feel like it's time, but it's incredibly hard.
Yeah.
I think intermittent fasting is obviously a good start to just going right to 3 days. Because I think for some people that's like, I remember my wife tried and she didn't even, I think maybe she made it 24 hours and she was just like, she was almost had a breakdown. She was like, I'm like, honey, just eat then.
Yeah.
Like, don't ruin your life over just trying to make this happen.
Yeah.
It was very hard for me. Very hard. I remember like not crying, but whining to Mike on day one. And he's like, dude, it's like lunch on day one and you're whining. But that's actually considered the hardest day sometimes.
The hardest day is day one.
The second day was easier.
Yep.
And the third day, you're already like, I'm going to eat tonight.
Yeah.
So you could sell yourself on I just got to get like 7 more hours and I'll be eating.
Yeah.
So it's very hard, but the intermittent fasting is easy to plug into your life depending on how you do it. Well, give a good example of a good way to implement an intermittent fasting for somebody.
Yeah. And real quick, I want to just touch
please.
on what you shared there because it's one of the things I love hearing the most. In week 2 of our program, there's a 2-day fast. Like it is required. You do not move on to week 3 without completing 48 hours without food. It's the biggest fear the guys have of anything else in the program.
Yeah.
Like they're not scared to ask the difficult questions. They'll come up on the group calls. They'll talk about their guilt, their shame. They'll open up to the brothers in the community. They're all afraid of this fast though, which I was when I first started.
I know.
But by the end of it, you learn a lot of things. You learn so much when you deny yourself of food for 2 days. And I think one of them is how strong you mentally are and how capable you are. Learning to say no, learning to deny yourself, learning to say, there's something inside of me that tells me I want to eat, but my mind is stronger than that thing and I can resist it and it will go away. So it is amazing. For somebody that's looking to integrate or implement intermittent fasting into their life, I would say eliminate sugar as much as you possibly can. Trying to intermittent fast while eating processed food is going to make it very difficult because your blood sugar is going to be through the roof. Go keto or go low carb, go higher fats, red meats, fishes, salmons, minimal carbs. You know, if you're not somebody that's training intent, like if you're not an athlete that's training super hard, you could probably go without carbs. Like, so eat your meats, your nuts, your avocados, your vegetables. Probably the biggest thing is have your coffee, throw some MCT oil, throw some butter, throw some ghee in it to kind of, help kind of extend the energy cycle there. Don't do it on a night like where you ate like crap the night before. Don't do it on a night where you maybe drink some alcohol. Be prepared and kind of set yourself up. But whole food based, minimal carbs, eliminate processed foods.
What would you say is a really good eating window for someone to implement? How many hours should they go? Should they go for like a 16-hour and then give themselves like from 2 to 6, 2 to 7 as a time period of eating? Like what's a 1 day look like?
Yeah, and I'm not the expert here.
No, I know.
But I did have Dr. Stephen Cabral on the show, and I would say he probably is one of the world's leading experts in this. He brought some things to me that were kind of, I don't want to say controversial, but they were counter to what I think a lot of people, how they practice it. He actually recommends eating breakfast, eating earlier in the day, and fasting later on throughout the day.
Okay.
Something with the research shows that that's better for your circadian cycle. It's better for sleep. So your fasting would start kind of after lunch. So you would eat, small minimal breakfast, some eggs, some bacon, fats, proteins. You'd have maybe something post-workout. If you train in the morning, maybe a protein shake. Then your big meal would kind of be your lunch. And then you fast from lunch through the remainder of the day. And that's what he recommends.
Go to bed hungry.
Go to bed hungry.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what he recommends for most people. I think having this is exactly, it's got to be protocol for something like that is almost impossible because people have different lifestyles. People have different jobs, different works. Yeah. People just feel differently. So test, right? The fancy word in marketing, split testing. See which one works best for you. I'm not somebody that likes people being dogmatic about the way that they eat. It all works. So you got to find out what's best for you. So test different things, try the morning eating with the afternoon fasting, try the morning fasting. For me, that's when I fast, I'm better fasting in the morning because I don't know why I feel like food kind of slows me down mentally. So like my work is heavily loaded creatively in the morning. I like to fast a lot of times before podcasts. I had a little protein shake before recording this today, but nothing else. So for me, I'm somebody that will, and maybe this is how I trained myself as a bodybuilder because I used to do carb backloading from DH Kiefer. So I was always eating a lot of carbs later on in the day. But you got to know what works best for you. Like if food slows you down and you're somebody that's got to be creatively on the go in the morning, then you're going to have to be somebody that maybe eats later on in the day. But test it. But yeah, according to Dr. Cabral, the optimal way for most people is to eat in the morning, fast in the afternoon.
And nobody knows better than you all those years of bodybuilding, of trying different eating habits and seeing how am I responding physically to this? How am I responding mentally to this? How are my energy levels in the gym? If I eat at this time, how do I feel at this time when I like to train? All those things. Yeah. So a lot of experimentation, but it does look different for everybody. Success looks different for people. Some people like to stay up late. Some people like to go to bed by 8:30 and get up super early, right? Like Dr. Ron, our buddy Dr. Ron. That guy, if you make dinner plans with him, he's like, okay, so can we eat by like 6? Because I'd like to be home and in bed by like 8.
Yeah.
So that I can get up at like 4.
Yeah.
And it's like, who are you? Like, you're an alien. But it works for him, and he likes it. And he feels in rhythm when he's waking up at 4 or 4:30 and doing devotional and prayer time and all that stuff. By 6:30, he's already gotten so much of his personal growth work done for the day, and he can just focus on all these other things.
Yeah. And also, I think, depending on where you are in life, like, I can't eat the way that I ate 5 years ago.
Right.
Like, it wouldn't do anything for me. So I'm sure Ron has also gone through different phases of his life. I'm sure when he was building his businesses, like, especially in the restaurants, like he
was up late.
Yeah, he was up late because he had to be, because that's what the work calls you to do.
Exactly
so,
right.
We got to be fluid. We got to be open. We can't be stuck and dogmatic and just, it's got to be done this way. Like, we're all individuals, and I think things are going to work differently for people.
So that being said, talking about the gut health and the impact on our brain, are we able to then see porn in a different light once we've optimized our gut? Is that kind of like the strategy there? Is like, if we can clean up our gut and kind of take care of our nutrition a little bit, manage that and be more disciplined there, we're just going to be able to make better decisions. Like, we're going to just be cognitively functioning at a higher level and see it for what it is, rather than, I mean, what can you say to that?
Yeah, no, that's very well phrase, Chris. And I don't think that you're just seeing porn differently. Like, if you're in a depressive state because you have an unhealthy gut, you see the world through a poor lens. You see it through foggy, very foggy, pessimistic, glass half empty. Things are happening to me instead of for me. So I think cleaning up your gut, resetting your gut microbiome, being able to produce healthier neurotransmitters, getting a clear mind changes the lens at now which you see everything in the world through. The willpower piece is an interesting one. I had David Asprey on the show right after he wrote the book, Fast This Way. And he talked about willpower being nothing more than having the necessary energy to make the proper choices when faced with a difficult decision. So if you are tired, lethargic because your gut is unhealthy and you're drained and slow down, your willpower tank is going to be depleted just because you are operating lower than where you should be. So when you are feeling your best, like, dude, you got all the energy in the world. You're like, throw the shit at me. I can resist anything that's thrown my way. That's one piece of it with porn, right? Is you got to have the ability to resist and say no. There is a willpower component. It's not the only thing, but for sure, like, when you get healthier, you clean up your gut, you think differently, you see the world more efficiently. Not only do you see porn for what it really is, you also see it as it's the damaging thing to me. But yeah, you just have more cognizant ability to make better choices.
Yeah, I see porn kind of like, porn for me is like the cereal aisle in the grocery store. That's porn. It's like all the crap that is just no good for you, but it looks so good from like the end. It's so colorful and lined up nice, and all these things, Life cereal and Frosted Flakes and Fruity Pebbles and all these things that you used to eat in college, And you're like, ooh, exciting, and satisfying in a way, right? I used to eat cereal as like dessert and for breakfast and middle of the day as a snack if I wanted, right? Because in college, you only can afford the cheap food, so you can I would buy tuna, which was kind of like that was my fine dining, was tuna fish, right? Eggs, milk, and tons of cereal. The top of the fridge had, like, the reason I say that is because that's like the number one thing you should be removing from your life if you're trying to eat better is like those cereals. And I feel bad because, of course, what does my son end up eating? He ends up eating cereal before school a lot. I'm pumping them full of eggs and everything else too a lot of the time. But you can get away with these things when you're younger to some degree. Yeah. Certainly if you're in athletics and, and you're, still eating protein and steaks and chicken and all this other good stuff. Yeah. You can get away with some of the garbage eating. But as we get older, in our audience, I know our listeners are probably, I'm sure there's some 20-somethings, but there's probably a lot of 30, 40, and 50-somethings. You can't get away with that garbage. Garbage in is garbage out.
You see Serial differently now, though, right?
Oh,
As your age
100%.
than you did when you were 19, and I think
100%.
and that's a good analogy you use, right? Because when you're trying to get off of porn, you have to see the product for what it really is. It's not the thing that I desire anymore. You know, as somebody that used to smoke cigarettes, I think I talked about this on the first episode.
Can you believe we both did that at some point?
It was disgusting, bro.
Can you believe? My
I
wife will look at me sometimes. She's like, "You smoked?"
Yeah, I got a picture that was sent to me about a year ago with some buddies. We were in our early 20s at a club down in Ybor City.
Yeah, that's when I would do it.
There's bottles.
Yeah,
and
yeah. I was big and muscular.
I got the cigarette behind my ear, like I was just waiting to kind of pull it out. I was a smoker during the day. Like, you know, I would take smoke breaks at work and like with the cool people. Like I worked at I worked in a stock department for Walmart when I was 19, 20 years old, and I would sit in they had a smoke room in the building at the time. It was in the break room. There's a separate building.
Yeah,
that's where I learned to play chess. Was actually kind of cool, but I was just surrounded by it. But dude, I can't walk through. Like I was in Vegas over the summer. Like you walk down the strip, you walk through a cloud, and it just disgusts me. Right? Cereal, thinking about putting cereal in a bowl with milk, like it kind of sounds disgusting to me now. Like it wouldn't do anything for me. Porn's become the same thing. Yeah, it was this thing that I was chasing for a long time. It was this thing that satisfied me to a certain degree. You know, I was obviously hooked on it. But now just the thought of me sitting in front of a screen as a grown man watching other people have sex, like it's kind of disgusting. Like there's nothing that's attractive.
It's a total perspective shift, right? It's a total just mental shift, and seeing it, like you said, you know, seeing it for what it is with a more clear head, functioning cognitively at a higher level, and that's important. Now, what role does the nervous system play in all of this? Regulate. You mentioned to me prior to us talking today about. I'm sure you've had some amazing guests and conversations over the years too. So not only are you learning because you're reading stuff and you're researching and diving in deep, you're having real conversations with people that are like world changers and really unbelievable in their area of expertise. What have you learned in this realm of like regulating your nervous system or vibrating maybe on a different level?
No, it's everything, right? I mean, our nervous system is literally, it controls what Dr. Caroline Leaf would describe, kind of like our aliveness. Like our being is our nervous system, our spinal cord into our brain, our eyes. That is our nervous system. It controls our heart rate, our respiratory rate, our thinking, our breathing. Everything is controlled within the nervous system. The podcast has been amazing. I mean, selfishly, it's like it's the thing I love to do the most, and I would do it even if I didn't have a business today. But it's also made our program, I think this has been the separator, is yes, it started with my experience. It started with understanding addiction recovery, but now I have 250 experts in all these different realms that we've been able to pull different pieces from. So let's talk about this though, right? Because the nervous system, there's two kind of parasympathetic and sympathetic, right? Sympathetic being fight or flight, elevated heart rate. This is kind of like when we're stressed, anxious. Good to be in those states sometimes. Getting ready for a workout, I want to be like ready to go. I don't want to be
ready for a football game.
Yeah. Now immediately when I'm done with a workout, I want to be able to shift my nervous system into a parasympathetic state. That's where we're going to be anabolic. I remember talking with Ben Pekulski years ago, 2017. Derek Lunsford, who won the Mr. Olympia last year.
I got to get him on the show. He's a good dude.
He lives locally. I can connect you. I can connect you with Derek. But back in 2017, Ben pointed this out about Derek. We'd be in the gym 6 a.m. down at MI40. It'd be me, Ben, Joe Herr, Danny Vega was there at the time, and Derek crushing it, right? We're rack lifting 500 pounds. We're squatting 450. Derek always had this calm, cool demeanor about him. Like he could amp up for a set of 315 on barbell rows and then immediately just walk off and kind of just sit down and chill, looking like he wasn't even breathing hard. Derek said, watch this guy, because his ability to calm and control his nervous system.
That's what Ben said about Derek.
He said, watch this kid, because his ability to regulate his nervous system is going to make him a weapon in this industry. And this was before he...
I was going to say, this is 7 years ago.
7 years ago. He was big and jacked. He was a pro at the time, but he went on to be the first person ever to win a 212 pro card, and then, or not 212 Olympia, and then won the Mr. Olympia last year. The first person ever to win the Olympia in 2 categories because of his ability to calm and regulate his nervous system. What does that have to do with pornography? So porn is great at calming our nervous system. Why do guys watch porn? I'm anxious. I'm stressed, financially stressed. I got in an argument with my wife. I'm amped up. Kids are pissing me off. I got to make a tough decision. There's a lot of things in front of me and I'm trying to avoid them. All of those put us into a sympathetic state, a fight or flight response. Well, we can go watch some porn, get a massive dopamine spike, have a release through masturbation. Now we've shifted our nervous system into a parasympathetic. We are now calmed ourselves down. Well, how does this happen though? So the average age of exposure is 8 to 11 years old right now. You know, we're dealing with really the first generation of men that have had access to the internet and have had porn since they were a young boy. So if I'm a young kid, right, I'm 14, 15 years old, and porn gets me excited. Like just the thought of like going on the internet, seeing some naked chicks, like it amps me up. But then I go through the full process. Now I feel calm. What have I done? I've taught my nervous system that when I'm amped up, the pathway to controlling that is porn and masturbation. It deregulates my nervous system. It literally is what most guys use it for. Like guys don't watch porn when they're like sexually turned on by their wives. No, they use it when they're stressed, anxious, tired, feeling alone, isolated, all feelings of sympathetic states within our nervous system. So if we could learn regular real-time tools to regulate our nervous system, things like breathing, things like going on nature walks, things like getting off the internet, getting away from devices and getting out in nature, things that will naturally can be tools to shift us into a parasympathetic state. Now we're developing the tools that when things trigger us over here, we don't need porn to regulate. I've had 2,000 submission forms into applications, right? Consultation forms. What's your problem? Where do you use porn? I'm stressed. I'm anxious. I'm dealing with difficulties at work. I'm fighting with my wife. The kids piss me off. All these are reoccurring patterns. These guys don't see it through the lens of nervous system. They see it as like, oh, I'm just stressed. Well, your stress you're feeling is a byproduct of the state that your nervous system is in. So once you begin to understand that and begin to, like, once again, I say, develop the real-time tools. This is why for the last 18 months, I've jumped in a cold water tub every single morning. It forces me every single day to put myself.
How long are you in?
3 minutes.
Okay.
Right? Just enough.
That's what Rogan says he does it for.
Yeah.
And he says the hardest thing I do every day.
Yeah.
So everything else from there is.
Yeah. Everything
easy.
else. Yeah.
I want to get one. I should do it, right?
Yeah, you should do it.
And there's so many options now too. There's like inexpensive, easy ones that are kind of like look like a 50-gallon drum thing, right?
Yeah.
That you could just throw in your back. I have a big slab out in the back of the house. I could put it back in there, keep it covered, and just throw a bag of ice in it.
I would recommend getting one that has a chiller.
It has a chiller in
So stay
it.
away from the ice, because that was the route I went first, and
Okay.
then I was spending hundreds of dollars every single week in ice. So make the investment.
Okay.
It's going to cost you maybe $1,000 to $2,000 for a nice setup that has a chiller. You don't want to go the $5,000-$10,000 route that Rogan did with all that stuff.
I need the basic.
But I'm telling you, it will change your life. But why I do it, yes, the hard stuff. I like feeling, I like the dopamine.
Right.
But every day I'm forcing my body instantly, first thing in the morning, into a sympathetic state. And then I got to calm myself down over those 3 minutes. I'm just learning how to regulate my nervous system. Now when things don't go well throughout my day, boom, I just know what to do. Like I know I can think internally, okay, breathe, and I can feel things shifting within me.
Did you go right to 3 minutes in the beginning or no?
I did, but I used to have the ice so it wouldn't get as cold. So mine gets down to 37 degrees now, which is super, super cold.
So I probably, what I've heard from other people, start a little higher.
Yeah, start 46, 47. Anything below 50, you're going to get all the physiological benefits.
And go for a minute.
Yeah, start with a minute.
And then start building up from there and try to get to 3 is probably a good goal.
A part of our Scottsdale trip this past week, and we did a Wim Hof seminar, breathing for about 2 hours. They did all.
he's
Wim
crazy.
Wim wasn't there. It was one of his instructors, but it was all his science, all that stuff. We did this radical 3-phase breathing experience, which people were having psychedelic type experiences. I mean, I had an out-of-body experience, but then we finished it with 2 minutes and 32 degrees. This was the coldest I'd ever. 32 degrees. It was wicked. But I love it, bro. I hit one this morning before I drove over here.
Good for you. Yeah, I got it. I really want. Part of me wants to do it so bad, just because I want to see my wife do it.
Yeah,
and I think she would do it, because beyond the physiological, neurological, like all the benefits, there's also, and I think there's some science that backs this up, your capacity to burn deep brown fat, like organ fat, like stuff that you can't burn superficially like any other way.
Yeah.
You can start tapping into that with doing this on a regular, right?
Well, you made a comment to me that I look lean. I'm like, I'm eating the worst I have in probably a really long time. Maybe
it could be the black shirt. It could be I haven't seen you in a few months. I don't know.
That could be what it was. But yeah, definitely it incinerates that brown fat. I mean, your capacity to then do hard things, your capacity to control your nervous system through breathing. Like there's no negatives that come with it.
Right now.
Other than you're cold. But hey, you know what? You guys are from up north anyway. So
the only experience I have with this is, well, from when I was younger, and the temperature wasn't nearly that. The temperature was maybe 50 degrees. Was jumping into the ocean up in Maine. On vacation as a kid, and just that exhilaration of jumping off a dock in water that you had to swim through to then get back, climb out of the dock, and how exhilarating that was, and how fun it was. And we would do it multiple times, because when you're a kid, you're kind of a Looney Tune anyway. And then later in life, doing some of these mud runs, and you've been on some of these mud runs before, I think, right? Some of these outdoor mud runs, maybe. Well, no, we've done a lot of those over the years.
They've always had that one.
They have those the ice bath section where sometimes the ice bath has been used so much the ice is all kind of gone, but it's still cold water. But sometimes you go in there and it's just a tub of ice, like you can't even move through it. It's so thick, and you are literally your body. You're hot and sweaty outside in Florida doing this tough run. You're several miles in. Now all of a sudden you're in 40-degree water or so.
Yeah.
And just like your whole body is just like, get me out of here. Get me out of here. That's all you can think about, even though you're consciously jumped in it. And then you get out after probably being in it maybe a minute tops, maybe a little less, because you have to kind of push through other people in front of you, go underneath like a barrier, and then go through a little further and then climb out the other side. We would go back and do it again because it felt
so
like
good.
You came out and your whole body's tingling. Nothing hurts anymore.
Yeah.
You're like, dude, I think we got to do that one more time. Because we still got like 3 more miles ahead of us to run or whatever and do more stuff. Let's do this again. It's exhilarating. Yeah. And how long does that carry in your day after you do it? Like, do you still kind of like, there's still kind of some like when you work out for 6 to 8 hours after a workout, you're feeling this metabolic after growth, right?
So that's what I've heard Huberman, and I think he had a woman on, I'm forgetting her name. I think first name is maybe Susan. She's kind of the expert that he had on his show. So the dopamine spike is equivalent to, like cocaine and all these, methamphetamines, all these drugs. So it's like a 250 increase in dopamine. The difference with like the drugs versus the ice is drugs quick, boom, and then you fall, right? And then you go on the chase of I need more and more.
Yeah.
6 to 8 hours, I think, is the same window.
Like a workout.
That sustained, I've noticed it's helped me lower my coffee intake by doing it in the morning. Like you just feel this level of focus, clarity, drive, motivation for 4, 6, 8 hours throughout the day if you do it in the morning. The hot to cold is really cool too. And that's, I have a sauna. So a lot of days I'll try to do 20 minutes in the sauna and then boom, right in the ice. And then usually once a month I'll do like 20 sauna, 3 cold, 20 sauna, 3 cold. So I'll do like an hour, 12 minutes of like just hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold. And you always end on cold.
Cold.
Always end on cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Good for you, man. That's awesome. Well, you've inspired me to, at least strongly consider getting something at the house that is a little bit less of a crappy setup that I've like put together myself.
Yeah.
And actually there was one point where my wife and I in the garage, we have our old fridge is out there, a regular stand-up vertical.
Yeah.
But then I have one of those half freezers with the lid.
Yeah.
And I remember at one point my wife's like, why don't we just use this as an iced thing? And I'm like, I guess we could.
You can.
It's kind of, I could probably squeeze into it. I think I could. I know my wife could fit in it. But I'm like, I don't know. It's kind of has a lot of good meat and stuff in it. Like, I
Yeah.
don't, you know, I don't know. I would have to pretty much not use it anymore for food, and it would only be
Yeah.
for. But it could have.
There's a company out there, not to give them a plug because it's not a sponsorship, but Fire Cold Plunge. My girlfriend, Jess, she bought one from them, and it literally, they bought these big deep freezers and they've converted them. So they have now like the chiller built in. There's kind of like an electronic thing.
Yeah.
There's lights in and around it, but all she has in her garage is literally like you walk out there and it's like, oh, there's a deep freeze, and it's got like covers on it and stuff. Now it looks really, really cool. But that's what this company has been built off of.
She's doing it.
Yeah, she's not a daily person, but
she kind of spits it in here
like
and
when
there.
When she's amped up for it. But that was something we were doing early on. I was like, hey, you need to come over and do the cold plunge, and she thought I was like torturing her, but she ended up buying one for herself. So
I'm curious. After helping 1,200 like official people through your programming, is there one person that you thought, this is going to be real hard, man? This guy's really suffering. And I say guy because I think probably 99.9% of the people, I mean, typically who are reaching out to you are men.
I only work with men.
You only work with men, but which actually, obviously, and you work with, but you help marriages in helping men. Is there somebody that you really were like, I don't know, you don't have to name names, obviously, but he blew you away that he was able to push through, somebody that maybe was worse off than where you were, and he was just, I mean, is there anything that comes to mind? Or just for that matter, any testimonial or any person that was like, you marvel at, you were like, wow, that feels amazing.
Yeah. I mean, the ones that I get to personally interact with, I mentioned being in Scottsdale, meeting up with Armani, and the conversation over dinner with him and his fiance. We had David, who was a local sheriff here, that got to spend time. I got to spend 2 Saturdays with him and his family, which was just amazing, being welcomed in their homes. I mean, the emotion and tears shed in there. The one that shocked me the most, man, and I don't want to sound like I'm judging somebody, but I could tell early on that I think he was struggling with Asperger's or autism. Like he was on the spectrum, and I could just kind of get that feeling from him, like in our initial conversation. But he had told me that it had reached a point where like he stopped doing dishes. Like he had stacks and stacks and stacks of dirty dishes like coming out of his sink. Like he just kind of given up on like even taking care of himself. Like he wasn't shaving. Hygiene was disgusting. I was like, this guy's going to be really hard. I think we had to put him on a payment plan because the cost of the program was even a reach for him. But he surrendered to the curriculum. And when I say that, I mean, he did everything in exactly the way that I asked.
Wow.
I had these guys, we changed their lives. There's 5 daily habits, non-negotiables. He didn't miss a beat. He journaled every day. He did his morning gratitude every single day. He would take pages and pages and pages of notes for one written assignment. And by the end of it, like, I remember he did a video walkthrough. He's like, Frank, I've never felt comfortable showing the inside of my home to anybody, not even my family, because I was embarrassed at how I was living. Like, it was immaculate. Like, I mean, it was like you could eat food off of.
How many days, how many weeks, months later is this?
That was 4 months.
4 months.
4 months.
So 120 days.
120 days.
This guy, complete transformation.
Yeah. He got a second job. He'll never be the most financially abundant person in the world because some of the things he deals with just socially and whatnot, but he was thriving. He was working on some creative things, wanted to launch a YouTube channel. He was really good with music, had found a little, I say little, he was in his early 20s. He was a young man, had met somebody and they were, casually going on dates together. It was really, really inspiring, man. But I mean, we've had, there's so many, man, the marriages, like, we've had guys that have been in relationships for 4 years, but scared to take the leap. And by the end of it, they're sending me pictures. She said yes. It's like stuff like that, man. It's like, that's why I do it.
And you've said before in previous podcasts, clips I've caught of you and stuff, talking about finding a new identity.
Yeah.
And that's truly what it comes down to. It's people discovering a complete new version of themselves, a new identity, seeing themselves different. The little voice in their head says different things to them. They just see the world in a different way. People see them in a different way. Everything they've become a brand new person.
Yeah.
That's anybody's capable of that in lots of different capacities in terms of like whether you have a porn addiction or you don't, right? I mean, there's people struggle in other areas of their life that they can overcome and have a new identity.
Well, you guys are in the health and fitness space, right? And you know this to be true. Losing weight is not hard. Everybody does it. Everybody can do it. Everybody will do it at some point in their life. But the research is very clear that 90% of people that have any type of successful weight loss journey will put all, if not more, of that weight on in a 3 to 5 year window. Why is that? Because they haven't changed who they are. They went on a diet. They went on a quick reset.
They still see themselves as that person with that struggle.
They see themselves through that person with the struggle, and they still live their lives through that person with the struggle, right? Instead of saying, hey, this new way of eating is going to be my new lifestyle. Well, what is a lifestyle? A lifestyle is something that follows your identity, right? When I got into bodybuilding, like I had to live as a bodybuilder everywhere I went. Frank, why do you show up with, Tupperware to family events? Because I'm a bodybuilder. It was my identity. So my actions followed how I was, who I was. Surrounded by entrepreneurs every single day. Entrepreneurs are a different breed. They're a different identity. Their work goes with them everywhere they go. I remember first time I met Joel, it was pre-Bucks game. He was sitting there at the laptop at the restaurant. Well, that's probably why he went on to have a 9-figure exit from his company, right? Because he saw himself as this person. My work is the most important thing. Healthy or not, whatever you want to have that view on, but it was the identity at how he saw
If
himself.
you throw everything, and like BPAC, you mentioned Ben Pekulski earlier.
Yeah.
He threw everything into bodybuilding, and he became one of the best bodybuilders in the world for a period of time. He was right at the top of the heap.
Yeah.
And the only way you get there, you have to have blinders on, right? It's just like singular focus. The only bad part about it is like everything else can kind of crumble.
Yeah. And this was what I saw very early on in addiction, and this was the missing piece that I saw in other ways that people were trying to overcome porn or overcome any addiction. What does 12 steps ask you to do? 12 steps. Incredible, right? It's helped more people through addiction than any other organization in the world. They've been around longer than everybody else, so that's probably why they have the success. But every day when I go into a meeting, I had to raise my hand and say, Frank, I'm Frank, I'm a porn addict, or Frank, I'm a sex addict, or Frank, I'm an alcoholic. What are you doing? You're holding on to that identity.
To your old self.
And if we believe that our subconscious, which dictates and drives 80% of our life, is in control of what we do, if we hold on subconsciously to that identity of I'm an addict, I'm struggling, I'm trying to quit porn. That's the thing I tell guys, we're not here to quit porn. Like if all you're trying to do is quit pornography, you're in the wrong place. Because what you're saying is that this thing out there is stronger than you, and that's why you need to stop doing it. Why don't you become the person that no longer wants it?
Right.
Become the person that no longer
like
needs
Larry
it.
Hagner was saying, he drives past McDonald's with no intention, no interest in going there. He's like, it's just fast food. It doesn't appeal to me. It's not who I am. It's not what I'm about. I have no interest in it. I can stop and pick it up for the kids, but I'm not ordering any for myself. I just don't want it. I don't see myself as a fast foodie guy. You know what I mean? And that's what I've struggled with this in my own struggles with like just anger, short fuse, bad temper, overreaction stuff that was just built in me from my father, from my upbringing, and I've had this in me in some way. Even at 48, almost 49 years old, I still struggle with it. I've actually had some really good conversations recently with a guy who's I was on his podcast several months back, and he's just a good dude, and that's what he does. He helps men, he helps families through challenges. And for me, anger is definitely one. But I got to stop referring to myself as like, well, that's just who I am. It's just how I was brought up. It's how I was raised. It's like I don't have to be an angry person. I don't have to have a short temper. I don't have to have a short fuse. I can change it. I can. What he was saying is like he's like, do you do it at work? I'm like, no, not really. He's like, do you do it in this area of your life? I'm like, no. He's like, so you do it at home with your wife and your children. So you're giving yourself permission at home to be an angry person.
Yeah.
But you don't give yourself permission at the grocery store to be an angry or whatever. And I'm not saying I'm perfect in all areas of my life other than just when I'm home with my family. Yeah. But I give myself permission in certain environments to be more angry. They can see the worst parts of me, but I'll keep those at bay.
Yeah.
In these other areas of my life, of our life, and people will do that with porn.
Yeah, yeah. Our identity drives everything. Our thoughts come out of our identity. Our habits come out of our identity. The things that we do, the things that we don't do, all derive from the identity, which is the lens at which we see ourselves through. So everything about rebuilt recovery. A rebuilt man is a man that has gotten killed off the old identity and has stepped into the new version. The logo, right? The phoenix, the symbol of death and resurrection, becoming a lion. Men are here to be lions. That means that there's a territory for you to take dominion over, for you to lead, for you to conquer, for you to be in charge of. That is your call. That is your responsibility as a man. I think I mentioned like we have an assignment towards the end of the first month in our program where we've identified all these parts about the old self, right? The limiting beliefs, the fear, the anger, the judgment, the guilt, the shame, all that. Put on a piece of paper, burn the paper, and watch the parts of you die.
Yeah.
And then create a new piece of paper with everything that is the new identity.
Pruning.
Yeah.
Just a massive pruning,
Yeah.
And
that's the deep work. That's the important work. And that's I believe that's been the work that separates us. Cause like I said, I saw the whole. I said, if you're going to be free, you cannot every day call yourself an addict.
Is that why these other systems and these other, solutions prevent people from seeing results, from getting the change that they're after, is because they're coming up short in this one particular
I think it's
area?
one of the biggest. I think it's one of the biggest ones. I mean, I haven't seen everything out there,
Sure.
But what I understand about our mind, our subconscious, and it's not to knock the origin, the originator of 12 steps, but the interesting thing I just found out about Bill W. So Bill W. was the founder of AA. He got free from alcohol, but he ended up becoming a sex addict.
Yeah, so he just transferred.
It to something else because every day he had to raise his hand and say, "I'm powerless to this thing." No, you're powerful. There's nothing in the world that you cannot conquer if you set your mind to it, if you put the plan, if you get yourself in the right environment, and you have the right belief system.
With just a word, you could tweak their model. You could say, "I was a sex addict.
Yeah.
I was an alcoholic. I'm not anymore.
Yeah.
It's not who I am."
Yeah.
Right.
I have a whole training where I deconstruct the 12 steps. And 100 years ago, man, we didn't understand science. We didn't understand neuroplasticity. We didn't understand the mind. We didn't understand all the things that, I've been fortunate to have people bring to the podcast. Like, these aren't things that I've come up with. Like, this is through speaking with the most educated people in the world in all these different realms.
What event in recent memory in the last couple of years that you've been asked to come speak at or been a part of has been rewarding for you? Is there one you'd like to highlight, or a couple? Anything in particular? Because I know you've done stuff locally at Grace Family Church. I know you've done some traveling. You've done a lot of podcasts. Is there any particular opportunity where you were like, wow, that was just, what an honor that was?
Yeah. I mean, every single one of them, right? I mean,
right, sure.
As somebody that, I don't know if I just love to hear my own voice or whatever it is, but I mean, I've always wanted to be a speaker. I mean, I was doing Toastmasters 7-8 years ago to kind of figure all this stuff out. Right. So every single one of them is special, whether it's, speaking to the youth here, speaking to parents on the dangers of social media, speaking to the men at Grace. Probably the one that I think, and maybe it's because it's the most recent, was the one I did just about a month ago. So you mentioned Larry Hagner. I was brought into Larry's event.
The Dad's Edge.
The Dad Edge. So it was the Dad Edge Summit, which is his annual event that he hosts for the men of his community. He's got about 1,000 dads in his organization. So these guys all flew into Orlando for a week of networking, masterminding, learning how to be a better father, how to be a better husband. So there was a lineup of speakers. There was Connor Gallagher, who runs the Well-Ordered Family. So this guy's got 16 kids, successful business guy, and teaches people how to basically run their families like they run a business, right? Like spreadsheets, vision plans, all this stuff. You got 16 kids, you got an operation. Great talk though, right? Wow. But very tactical to fathers. These are all dads, fathers, learning to be a better father. The other guy was, forgot his first name, but he was there on the relationship side. How to better communicate, interact, talk with your wife, the communication, all that great stuff. Once again, fathers have wives, big part of what they're there. And I'm brought in as like the first keynote speaker, like pornography addiction. Like, these guys didn't sign up for this talk, right? When I'm brought to a church event, they show up to the event knowing that this is the theme of the topic. When I speak to, parents on internet safety, they showed up because they're here to learn. I'm at a week-long event with fathers, and I'm the outsider that's going to talk about pornography addiction. Incredible, though. The reception there, standing ovation. I mean, people pulling me off side. Frank, incredible. Your story resonated with it. I mean, it's turned into, got clients already. I've gone on multiple shows through people that run small little things over there. I got to speak to their group. One guy came up to me after my talk, though. He goes, Frank, I just need to apologize to you. I'm like, for what? He's like, well, because I spoke after lunch on the first day. He's like, we were sitting at lunch, and I looked at the agenda, and I saw who you were and what you did. And I told the guys at my table, I don't need some grown man coming here today to talk to me about pornography. And he was kind of like aggressive about it. Like, I didn't sign up for this today. Like, what's this guy gonna talk to me about? And I wasn't there to preach. I wasn't there to make anybody feel guilty. I was there because I was invited by the host to share my story and the things that we were doing. I said, dude, you don't have to apologize to me. I didn't hear what you said. I would have never known. But it meant something though, right? Because whatever I said in that talk, this guy came into the talk with a guard up. Right. He had a shield up. He's like, I don't want to hear anything this guy has to say.
Such a manly thing to do, right? A lot of guys do that.
Yeah. And by the end of it, he felt compelled enough, or he felt called to come up to me and apologize for something I would have never known would have happened. So, that week was amazing because I was there. I spoke on the first day. I got to hang out for 2 additional days with the guys at this resort. So just the conversations, and that's what's been amazing for me, man, is like I wear Rebuilt Recovery everywhere I go. So when, yes, I get to speak to events. I get to go on podcasts. People know me as Frank from Rebuilt Recovery, but I get to go a lot of other places where people, like, they're not there because of what I'm doing. So if I'm at a cigar lounge and, what do guys talk about? Hey, what do you do? What do you do? Boom, boom, boom. I run an organization that helps guys with pornography addiction. The reception and acceptance that I get from people just everywhere, no matter where I am, whether I'm at a sporting event, I'm at a cigar lounge, I'm at a restaurant, I'm at an event for something else, I'm at a family gathering, whatever it is. It's just been amazing. But yeah, you asked a question about the event. I think it was that one that just, it was not what I expected. I was nervous. I'm not gonna lie. I've spoken lots of different places, right? Like, I'm not afraid to speak. Like I said, I look forward to it. But this one had a little bit of fear because, like I said, it wasn't a recovery event. It wasn't a overcoming lust event. It was an event for high-performing men, business owners that were there to learn about being better dads. And here I show up as like the random guest. But yeah, that one was really special.
Yeah, that sounds special. Sounds like something I would certainly love to have been part of. And what a cool experience to just not only to go and speak at, but then to just rub shoulders with these guys for share meals and just have these one-on-one connections with people. And then that leads to potential clients. It leads to other speaking opportunities because these are business owners who are like, dude, I want you to come speak at my event or my business or, whatever. So there's just so much opportunity in sharing a message that's powerful and so helpful and so necessary in the times that we're living in. And it's, my son, 13 years old, we monitor very heavily what he's looking at. I mean, his phone stays downstairs. Very rarely is he upstairs with his phone. Not saying we're perfect. I'm sure he's come across some stuff that he probably knows I shouldn't be looking at this, but we're constantly, my wife goes in his phone and looks at, conversations and texts and, we're we're checking in regularly because can you imagine that type of freedom at 13 when we were 13? I cannot. Freedom for us was somebody had a VHS tape that got passed around and had been watched hundreds and hundreds of times. That was freedom for us. Or a magazine we knew we shouldn't have that was, under our mattress or something. It's completely different now. And you're fighting against a very big machine. And so your work is, is so important.
Every 13-year-old boy today basically has access within a span of 15 minutes to see more naked women than a king, sultan, world ruler would have done in his entire life. Just 100 years ago.
Right.
I say it all the time, man. I'm so grateful that I grew up in the 80s and 90s, right? It was magazines and VHSs and maybe late night Skinamax if you caught a slip in between the fuzzy, snow and the TV.
Is that a boob? Is that a boob?
Yeah. Had I been, growing up today, like with kind of and that's the thing is like our lives were a lot freer though too than kids' lives of today. So would we been able? Yeah, I mean, I rode my bike 10 miles to the rec center like on a Saturday. Like Mom said, be home before the lights get on, and like she trusted me. I didn't have to call her or check her. And so it was definitely a different world. But yeah, had I had the internet, had I had technology, dude, I doubt I'd be sitting here today. Like porn probably would have taken me it took me close to the pit of hell, but I might have ended up there.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you gotta. Unfortunately, like I said earlier in the episode, sometimes that's where you have to go if you're going to really be able to affect change in others. Yeah. You kind of have to hit near bottom to be able to tap into that your potential to help. It makes me think of Chris McKenna. I think you introduced us to. It was so good. I'm actually advertising part of my old episode with him from years ago, just to give. It's just such a good conversation with him, and he's such a solid dude. I'm like, I want that video to grow. I just want that video to reach more people because his message is so awesome. We're obviously Rebuilt but Recovery and Superhuman Life podcast. Where should our listeners go just to learn more about what you're doing? What's your handle? What are the other platforms?
Yeah, Coach Frank Rich. On all the socials, everywhere, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter. Not very active on Twitter or X these days. But yeah, you can find Coach Frank Rich. We have a school community now. So we have a free community. If there's guys out there that are looking to get engaged with some training, some resources, regular calls, or bringing some guest experts. And it's a growing community of men that are all looking to, get free and support each other in doing it. I think community is such a necessary part of this journey. That's school, SKOOL.com/the Rebuilt Man. And it's a free community. You can join us and get access to some of the best things we've created.
Oh, that's terrific, man. Well, thanks again for coming in and this, next edition of the Truth About Porn. It's like part 3, loosely.
The next one will have to be in that new studio
in that new building. I'm telling you, dude. Well, it's just a matter of time. We know it's going to happen. We've kind of started to outgrow this building as our company has grown and our needs have changed, and so it'll be nice, but we don't want to force it either. We want the timing just to be when it's going to be and not just force it to happen. So this building, we've been in 8 years. I can't believe it. 8.5. No. Yeah, almost 8.5.
Well, I started coming in here 2017.
I know, dude. You started coming here the year after we got in.
Yeah.
And how many times we've been in here grunting and groaning and making videas. And just a lot of memories in this room.
I mean, there's videos of me cussing you out.
There's videos of me banging my head on the pull-up bar.
Yes.
And you going, dude, are you all right?
Oh, bro,
that was miserable. Gosh, we've had some laughs though out here, some great times. So I'm just grateful for you coming and all that you're doing, and it so matters. Yeah. So keep going, brother.
I love you, brother.
I love you too, man.
Thank you, man.
Listeners, another terrific episode with our dear friend Frank Rich, his 4th installment here on the Strong by Design podcast. We're so honored to have him. We hope you share this episode with somebody who needs to hear it. And I'm sure in your sphere of influence, there's somebody that you know that would benefit from all the things that Frank shared today. So please do that. Leave a rating or a review. We would really appreciate that. And we'll be back next Wednesday, as always, here on Strong by Design when a new episode drops. We love you. God bless you. Thank you so much for listening to the Strong by Design podcast. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe so that more people can find out about our show. Plus, you don't want to miss any future episodes with the amazing guests and topics we have lined up for you.